I studied philosophy, and I did my PhD in philosophy in Europe. And after my PhD, I really was a very successful PhD, but I really came to some kind of crisis, because I realized that this kind of thinking that we learn, it has very little effect on us as a whole person. And I always thought I just have to study more and more and more, and then it will happen. I mean, philosophy really originally does mean love for wisdom. So there's some kind of fuzzy hope why you study this. Yeah, maybe it's the same when you study psychology, a fuzzy hope that you understand the human person better. Yeah. And then after the PhD, I really realized, no, it's very strange, because some part of me is getting clearer all the time, but also kind of totally disconnected to the other part. And I don't know how to connect that. And I really wanted to stop doing philosophy, even though I really invested many years in it, and I got offers and stuff like that. But I just had the feeling I'm slowly there's a strange kind of crack happening. And that was by mere chance that that at that time, Jean Gendlin had a talk in Zurich, and somebody invited me. In fact, it was Christiane Geiser. I don't know, maybe some of you know her. She's one of the also very first coordinators, I think, in Switzerland. And then I was immediately amazed, because Gendlin was not really holding a normal lecture, but he was inviting people, and onto where he was speaking, onto the stage, and he started to do thinking at the edge with them. And I had never seen something like that. I really thought, what is this, and how can he do this as a philosopher, and so on. And so it got me going, and I started to research his work, and I started to get in contact with him, and then a whole new path opened. I started to translate the process model, and yes, and it got me, and I wrote a book, a book which I called Close Talking. Unfortunately, it's just available in German at the moment. And also a new research cooperation has started, also very much like in Gendlin's word, occurrings into implying, a much better word for coincidence. Things happen that all of a sudden I'm very much in a different research environment with people who are really willing to experiment. And we have a research group now, an international research group. We call embodied critical thinking, where we use thinking at the edge and focusing as methods for research, also with other methods. And this has now become a training program, which is funded by the European community. We call it Training in Embodied Critical Thinking, and 5 universities participate. 5 European universities. So anybody who is interested or working in research, or so, please contact me, and maybe we can talk some more about that. Yes, I think that's all there is for now. Lynn, is that okay?
Yes, well, I want you to tell them about Iceland.
Yes, it was very nice, because while I was 3 years in Chicago, also while I was translating the process model, and in close contact with Eugene Gendlin. And then I got an email by a feminist philosopher from Iceland who started focusing, and who started to wonder how one could maybe combine focusing with philosophy. And she just put in those 2 words, focusing and philosophy, and I'm very lucky that I popped up. And so she contacted me, and we met. Then we met at a summer school, and then she invited me to a summer school to Iceland. And that's the first time that I tried to introduce thinking at the edge methods in a context of gender studies. And I must say it was a very difficult experience. It was 5 years ago. And then we really started to think, how can we integrate this in a way that it's acceptable, that it's that it's even more that it's even more safe, that we can translate it in terms that make it more easily accessible for a research context. And we worked together 2 years, and we applied for a large Icelandic fund, and we got that. And now we're at the end of this fund, and we have a team, and we have a lot of interest, and the team is also kind of growing. And so now we started with this European thing, and it's really at the core is this Icelandic philosopher Sigridur Torgersdottir, and me, and slowly a team of younger people also. Yeah. And it's really, we have the summer school in Iceland this summer where 30 students from areas of cognitive science, psychology, but also artificial intelligence, also anthropology, really a mixed group of students, also staff, faculty members who got to know our project and who were interested. And we worked together 5 days doing Thinking at the Edge, each one of them working on their research project. They were prepared by webinars before they came. And it was really, really amazing how they opened up their projects and really dived down deeply to their core questions or their core fuzzy perplexities, and the shifts that happened in that week. It was really, really very, very motivating. And again, it gave me so much awe about this method. Thinking at the Edge is really a wonderful method. And if you understand the process model, then you just see how it kind of helps you to access or engage in a more focused way the abilities that we have anyhow. So it's so good to understand the process model, because it really allows you to cultivate much different kind of reflective practices and so on, which might be a bridge for my little presentation.
Yes, I just want to come in there for those who don't know what Thinking at the Edges and TAE is. We as a community have experienced some of this in our discussions when we ask the question, what would you want that word to mean? That kind of question. And those of you who are interested in this application of the philosophy, like focusing is the application of Jean's philosophy that is our personal exploration, and TAE is a kind of parallel practice in terms of thinking, in terms of the joy of creative thinking. And we can do it in this parallel way with Thinking at the Edge. So I just wanted to clarify that, and those who are interested in furthering that will have some more about TAE.
Thank you. Yes. So I think when Lynn asked me to present something, she suggested that I might present something from the process model. And it's not so easy to present something about this book in a short time. But I just wanted to share with you 2 concepts, which are really the basic concepts of this whole this whole work, or that lay the foundation for a different understanding and for a different way of thinking. And those of you who have been to my class, this is nothing new, but maybe for me it was also very important to repeat and repeat and repeat this stuff. So I hope it's not wasted time for you. So I would make a little PowerPoint presentation. We just have just a few slides. And as I know the context of this meeting is help the helpers, I wanted to kind of go into the direction to see how these concepts also help to understand, you know, the helping. And yeah, but I just made very slight indications, and I hope that we can draw this out a little bit together. And then I just had a very simple exercise at the end. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I would now share the screen. One moment. Yes. So, in the very first chapter, Gendlin very boldly comes up with a sort of concept which doesn't allow us to split anymore in the usual way we do. Wait, or in a very conventional way, like I say we now, but it's like this a cultural way of thinking, something we don't need to think very much. I mean, we have two words for outside and inside. Yeah, outside and inside seem to be something different. And we have two words based on this also called subjective and objective. And we know that this objective way is the basis for science, and that subjectivity is something that really needs to be overcome, or let's say the paradigm of objectivity is also how to overcome subjectivity, that we all have the same methods, that we don't bring our own stuff into the knowing, that we don't bring our own bias into the knowing, and that we have comparable results. So subjectivity has, let's say, in the context of scientific knowledge, it doesn't have a good reputation. Let's put it like that. Or I just make now a very how do you say, coarse picture. There's also this split, and they're all kind of interconnected between feeling and rationality. Yeah? Feeling is also, one could say, belongs to the side of subjectivity, belongs to the side of insight, and for a very long time already, also in going back to Plato, maybe not so much to Aristotle, but going back to Plato, it's really feeling that can deceive us. So this there's also a split there, and again there's also this split, also interconnected, the view from within, that is something different than the view from without. And I now make even a jump. There's also some kind of split between meaning and measurement. We cannot really measure meaning. That might be also a big problem to our scientific approaches, that this whole dimension of meaning kind of is not graspable in the methods we have that very much are based on quantitative measurement. And then also this split between the individual and the collective. We all know that these things belong together, but there's quite a rigid split somehow also, which our culture, the Western scientific culture, kind of embodies. And so Gendlin starts to present in the very first chapter concepts that kind of undermine this kind of split in a way that is really simple to follow. Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have said body environment too. So he says there are different ways to approach body and environment. There's maybe a very conventional way that we say this is our body and the environment is out here. And if we want to know something about the environment, now I say it also again in a very crude way, very simplistic way, like the scientist who wants to know something about the environment, he goes out there, he observes, he gets data, he kind of tries to make himself as neutral as possible to just collect what is out there. And in this way of understanding body here, environment out there, there is also a split automatically between body and environment. We might kind of relate to things in the environment. We might have relationships to the environment. We might get information and data, but there's always this tacit kind of split. And then Gendlin, in the first chapter of the process model, introduces something that he calls body environment 2. Body environment 1 stands for this very conventional way of how we understand environment as something outside. And body environment 2 suggests a different way of understanding environment and body as absolutely non-separable. I want to share with you, I just want to share with you 3 quotes from the process model to kind of inspire you to think about this a little bit, or to maybe read into the book some more, to make us understand what he wants to demonstrate, or what he wants to indicate by this little bit clumsy and not so sexy term, body environment 2. If we say it fast, we say body and 2. So he shortens it with body and 2. He means the following facts: that normally if we live, there's air coming into the lungs and into the blood cells. We can view this event as air coming in, or as a coming into lungs and body cells. Environment number 2 wants to make us aware that it's really one event, viewed as environment or as body. So environment number 2 means we're not calling it environment because it is all around, but because it participates within the life process. And body is not just lungs, but lungs always already expanding, always already in interaction with the air. Air coming in and lungs expanding cannot be separated. And he says the point is that we need not split between the lungs and the air. The point that he's really making, that this split is quite an artificial one, quite a step that has a lot of preconditions. But if we live, we cannot even make this split. He says, take another example, walking. Wait, I'm very sorry. When Gendlin held a speech and the telephone rang, he would just take it, say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just holding a speech. How are you? I talk to you later. So I don't dare to do that yet. I might have to put this thing out. Yeah. Okay, so he gives us another example. Walking. So we can only walk if there is a ground to walk on. We can only walk if the pressure of the ground corresponds with the pressure of our feet. The same pressure, which is the foot's on the ground, is also the ground's pressure on the foot. We can separate ground from foot, but not ground's resistance from foot pressure. So environment 2 is not the separable environment, but the environment participating in a living process. Okay, so he says, environment 2 is not the ground, but the ground participating in walking, its resistance. The behavior cannot be separate from this ground participating. If the body is hanging in the air or attempts to walk, its wings will be much wider and it will not move forward. It won't be walking. In deeper water, walking will immediately be thrashing. The motions will be different. The body cannot enact the same behavior without the ground. So with these very easy examples, Gendlin indicates that in order to live and in order to behave, we always already have environment participating in a vital way. We cannot walk without the ground resisting exactly the way that it resists. And we couldn't live a moment if lungs and air were separated. If it was not this continuous, lungs are lungs because they developed in the interaction with air for thousands of years, because they're in motion. If this is separated, we die. And of course, the same applies with all the basic acts. Yeah, I mean, we couldn't survive. We could only survive with a few days if we wouldn't constantly take in environment, process it, and we say this is food and this is the body. But really, if we wouldn't have food, the food could be more important than maybe our hand to our body. So body environment 2 wants us to start to think about the body environment and interaction always already as a process. Always already as a process, and as a process we cannot observe from the outside. We are this interaction. So to say something valid about body environment 2, we kind of need to know what it is like to breathe. We need to know what it is like to walk. Yeah. We need to know what it is like to eat. So this also entails a totally different standpoint from where we know and from where we think. That we are not outside the environment we think about. We are always also already embodying it and acting it, being this highly, highly, highly complex interaction between body and environment. Now let me see. Okay, now this is really just a dip from this body environment number 2. There comes the next concept. It also has this very dry name, but it again opens up a new way of thinking, a totally new way of thinking that is based on this interaction and that is not based on different things and relations, but that is really based on an interaction that we embody while we live. So the next concept is body environment 3, and you already see in these images that this living process that we are, and that animals are, and that plants are, it has this totally obvious but really amazing characteristic that it builds itself a structure. Now I say it not in a Gendlin way, just that you can maybe, Gendlin says it builds itself an environment in which it goes on in. Yeah, so you see this, I mean, human bodies in their living process also are the environment for further living. You see this amazing picture of the baby. Or the spider creates the environment in which it lives in. Spiders live on self-made environments. Or the tree. As the tree, we don't look at the tree anymore just like an object with this concept of environment 3, but as a living process that generates itself an environment in which it goes on in. And of course, this environment is again in interaction with so many other environments. Here, just based on these two basic concepts, Gendlin writes on page 7 already, what inside and in mean is no simple question. The simple in of a skin envelope assumes a merely positional space in which a line or plane divides into an outside and in. But the ground pressure of the floor, which we see and which we think we can differentiate from our body, this pressure is exerted not just on the sole of the feet, but all the way up into the leg and the body. So we are really, where does the ground on which we stand stop, you could ask? From most any single bone of some animal paleontologist, paleontologists, how do you say it in English? Something like that? Okay, thank you for nodding, Charles. Can derive not just the rest of the body, but also the kind of environment and terrain in which the animal lived. In breathing, oxygen enters the bloodstream environment and goes all the way into the cells. The body is in the environment, but the environment is also in the body and is the body. Yes, so I think there's really such bold, with a few strokes, Gendlin lays out, he opens up a new space from where we understand, from where we begin to think, by not tacitly already putting us somewhere outside and then thinking about things. You might know this Gendlin's, I think it's not only Gendlin's, but Gendlin often uses this abouting mode of thinking, which presumes it's kind of outside and can put the things together. But just with these two fundamental concepts, starting with body environment, we see we are never outside, and we think always within these amazing interactions, and that this environmental aspect, it doesn't stop at our skin, it goes deeply inside, and our whole body is also an environment in which the living process goes on in. So let me share with you this last quote. And we will then also work with this quote a little bit in the breakout groups. I very much love this quote. For me, it's almost like a poem. The bloodstream is often called the environment of the cells it feeds. The many processes in the body have various parts of it for their environment. Also here, the skin line is not the great divide. Environment 3 is the environment that has already been regenerated by body process. The body is an environment in which body process goes on further. The body was made from an embryo engaged in process. The body structure is not only made, but also maintained by ongoing processes. If they stop, the body disintegrates. See the lines on a seashell. A small first part is already a seashell and was the smaller animal's shell. Rings and rings more are added on by growth. The shell has the nature of an action track. It is process concretized. The body is also like that, a record, an action track. And then this opens a way to think about the body that also gives us a very different understanding of time and a very embodied understanding of time, to say the least. And this Gendlin can explicate in chapter 4, where he also says, and it's so evident, but saying it like this, explicating it like this, really is highly transformative. So he says, he writes, the past is the body. It carries the scars of my childhood cuts. It has the hangover from last night. It is my past experiences and those of the race and the species. So in some way, the body is, we can also stop cutting. I could have put it on the list, between natural and cultural. Yeah, the body is this environment that is grown in interaction with vast other environments. It is an environment to itself in which body process goes on in, but this environment is not separable from culture, from our personal life. Yeah, the past is the body is such a wonderful, strong way of saying it, and being aware of what an amazing environment we carry forward, yeah, in which generations and generations of lives kind of go on and continue, and we are the environment in which this life goes on in, and the way we relate to this life again makes a huge difference to what an environment we are, what an environment we embody to ourselves, and as we are so interacted with everybody else, of course also to the others. And there maybe I want to say that this gives such a new word, gives so many new words to the aspect of care. So that those environmental concepts, they're a concepts that support us to think, study, live, and research within this environmental interaction, which is always also environmental responsiveness, because we are responsive environment, and we are, and the way we respond also affects so many different environmental networks, environmental interactions. And so this is why this concept is, I want to say it's a very practice-oriented concept, because it really allows you to experience and to think how different kind of practices have a huge impact on the environment we embody. So of course, and that's also a point Jen-Lyn makes, but we can also do it ourselves. We are environment for each other. Yeah, we are. And this still seems very conventional to say it, but if you read the process model, you understand how deep this environment goes. It's not just a surrounding environment. We are a bit like the air we breathe. It goes deep, 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 and we know this from psychological research and developmental psychology, this huge impact that basic relations have to the growing infant. Yeah, it's not separable. So we change and create environment by the way we relate to each other. It's not just a relation, it's a changing of environment. We change and create environment by the way we relate to ourselves. And of course, we change and create environment while enacting care. And I think that with these concepts, care becomes such a basic, central notion for everything. For everything. It's not just there's the care corner and then there are all them. With these concepts that open up this sensitivity of living process and the sensitivity of environments in which the living process goes on in, care becomes such a major aspect in everything we do. Yeah, so I want to end with this word. We are the environment in which our mutual living goes on in. And just having a few, sometimes pictures speak more than words. This is a picture I also used for my process model class because it shows so well that the skin line of the baby is not the great divide. It's really, it is what it needs as a process. It just deeply implies the other body. It deeply implies the mother breast. and it deeply implies this interconnections. Yes, so I think this is the end of my little input.